Hello, third miniature quilt I will choose randomly. It's a log cabin. So now when I think of log cabin, I think of Amy Pabst, Pabst. I saw her work at Nantes 2 or 3 years ago, and while these aren't miniature quilts, she's often playing around with miniature dimensions and just creating these absolutely stunning pieces. And all around you, you'll hear people saying, imagine the patience it takes to make that. But you can look at these and see, you can have all the patience in the world and you still will not be able to make these stunning quilts. This is not just patience. So she uses electric quilt to plan out what she's going to do. And then I did manage to talk to her about her technique, so I'm going to use a bit of non-woven backing, which is what she uses for hers. So this is her here, and this is what I love about exhibitions. You can chat with the people who've actually made these. So this is the book I'm using, Little by Little, Mary Hickey. This is a book that's still for sale. She gives you directions, and there's a grid guide and a strip guide in the back. But I'm not really following the instructions just because I can't, even just in normal life, I can't seem to follow instructions. But these are all full of simple quilts, and it's a lovely book. And now I'm going to show you another lovely book. This is a Japanese book called Log Cabin, and I'm just going to pick out a few pages that really are eye-catching. And obviously, Log Cabin is, it's so popular, and I think one of the reasons that it's so popular is just all of the possibilities. So just look at these stunning squares. Sometimes they're cut out of one piece of fabric and made with one piece of fabric. Traditionally, there is a red square in the middle to represent the fireplace, and then the logs around. So infinite possibilities, ways of arranging all those squares once you've made them up. And then, of course, all the different ways of quilting the squares. And so, although you have traditionally like a light side and a dark side, there's also these examples. I think this is done more courthouse steps way. So instead of this logs being sewn around in a circle, they're sewn on from side to side. I think this is really effective. And then a lot of playing around with motifs and colour, and this just makes me so happy looking at these examples. Gets your mind whirling with possibilities. Love it. So I do have a little bit of experience. This is courthouse steps. I couldn't get the right dimensions, so if you do want to look, you might just have to go to my Instagram page. This is a marble bag for my daughter, clutch bag for a friend and colleague. And then I had to go into my daughter's toy box because I remembered I had made one of these. We all made one in our patchwork club. And although it's relatively well made, these are made with 1 centimetre strips. I don't like it at all. It's not really my style. But I did follow all the rules like everybody else, and I picked 4 light fabrics, 4 dark fabrics. But today I'm doing what I want to do. So this is something that came as packaging through the post. It's some non-woven. The only thing about this is you can't iron it. So if you wanted to get something that doesn't melt, you could look in your quilt shop. You can buy pieces of non-woven, quite light fabric that are already marked, but the markings aren't necessarily what you want to use. And anyway, we're all about recycling these days. I'm just going to use this. I've cut out a block size that is significantly bigger than what I need because I just want to have room for error. So it's probably about 1/2 inch bigger than I need. And I'm going to put my first markings on, these diagonal lines, and then a square for the centre block. So these are all going to be lines that I'm going to sew along. So the centre block is going to be a 5/8 of an inch square, and then I'm just going out by 1/4 of an inch all the way around. And these blocks only have 2 complete logs around them, whereas the one that I made before, I think they had 4 around, and my first log cabin was made with 1 centimetre strips. So this is the thing, isn't it? Infinite possibilities. You could have your square in the middle much bigger, whatever makes you happy, whatever you like making. So I've prepared some squares, and I'm going to get on to one of my favourite parts, sifting through all my little tiny bits of materials. So I'm looking for smaller motifs because it is a mini quilt. So I don't want everything to get sucked up by the miniatureness of it. I want to be able to see the motifs or the patterns, whatever the word is. So if you're having trouble getting a pile of light fabric and a pile of dark fabric, and that is what you want to do, you can always take a photo and put it in black and white to check that you're getting enough contrast. Because one of the things about miniature quilts is keeping quite a high contrast level. And I think that's one of the reasons I didn't like my first miniature quilt as much, because the contrast didn't pop out. So I'm loving checkies, I'm loving a few stripes, circles, some graphic black and white designs. So many patterns like this one will say 4 light fabrics, 4 dark fabrics, and they'll use all the same fabrics. But obviously, infinite possibilities, go for it. So in the centre, instead of using a red square, I am fussy cutting these little fluorescent embroidered circles, points, polka dots, maybe. I've got such a way with words. So this is an old shirt that I'm using. Not sure how effective this will be as a centre point, but if you don't try, you don't know. And I haven't got electric quilt. So, old-fashioned trial and error. So I've got my lines all planned out. I turn it over, and I'm going to place this on, thankfully it's quite see-through. I'm going to place this right on the middle. Now, how you proceed from here depends on what you like to do. You could cut out really accurate strips, or you could do what I did and hack away at 1-inch strips and really just rely on your guidelines. Now, this is how I prefer to do it. So I've sewn across one side of the square, light piece of fabric, press it down, and then I'm going to put my second piece of light fabric on the second side, either accurately or just cut it down. I really prefer this because it doesn't interfere with my creative flow. So now we're on to dark colours. The first row of dark colours, sew on, press down. And from now on, you can always tell where you're supposed to be sewing because you've got these 2 open flaps, not sewn down. So you're going to sew right across them. So you can be a bit more accurate than me. Sometimes I've gone berserk and left massive big bits to be cut off like this. Or you can just do as I did. So now you've got 2 light, 2 dark, and I'm going to go around again. 2 light, 2 dark. The 2 light ones are sewn on the light side and the 2 dark are sewn on the dark side. So there is a bit of guesswork of where you position in the fabrics, which is why I like it to cut it a bit bigger. And then you're not having as many problems of sewing far too close for comfort, thinking that, oh, I've sewn it too close and it's going to come out. You can always cut down your seams after. So this is the final log. Another dark one. And then you need to make 24 of these. Obviously depending on what you want to do. You could go for an Amy Pabst quilt and make a load of them. But this is a messy process for me, who's already messy. And I'm happy at the minute with 24. And when you've got all your blocks, you arrange them out how you like, play around with them, and then sew them all either in rows or in columns and put them together how you want. So I've finished mine, and all that's left is to put a couple of borders on. Look at all the mess it's made. I'm never usually messy like this. Right, let's look at the finished quilt. So I didn't get the drum roll sound quite fitting with the images, but here we are, and I quite like it. Of course, my daughter says she prefers the first one, but I don't. This is more my style, and I've learnt quite a bit from doing it. I like these pops of pink, and I wish I'd maybe even made it stronger with the pops of pink. Now, anyone with an eagle eye might have noticed this block, and I think there might even be two of them, where I've actually missed 2 rounds. But you know what? And anyone asks, that's done on purpose. It's all about creativity, and you can do what you like. Well, I've enjoyed making. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Do let me know if you've made one of these miniature quilts. That's all for now. Bye bye.